up, what up, what up, what up? What's going on, everybody? God bless you, and thank you for joining your boy, Apostle R.O.D., for another episode of A Father's Journey. Listen, I'm excited about this episode because the guest that we have today, y'all, this man of God, I'm telling you, man, insightful, thought-provoking. He is going to say some things that may be controversial, things that are going to make you think. This is, I call him, well, I'll tell you what I call him when we get ready to introduce him. You know, I have a little nickname for him, you know, because of just the way he thinks. But he's very perceptive, and trust me, y'all are going to learn a lot from this brother's journey, and I'm glad to have him today. But before we get into our guest, again, I want to say A Father's Journey. This is a new podcast. This is episode, I want to say 5. Am I 5, guys? Where we at? I think it's 5. Okay, they tell me 5. They're not telling me 5, but I'm just assuming it's 5. But anyway, listen, but nevertheless, A Father's Journey is centered around primarily men. And we talk about men, and we talk about their journey. We talk about the things that causes men to do what they have to do as it relates to their walk with God, being husbands, being fathers, being sons, and just taking us through the journey of what it means to be a man in this cultural environment today from a biblical point of view or through a biblical lens. And so get ready, because we're going to take you on a journey. The guests and the people we're going to have, we're going to do a little bit of teaching. We're going to have some ad hoc stuff that we're going to do that's going to really, I believe, you're going to find very informative. We're also going to have women on the show as well. They're going to talk about their journeys with their fathers as well, because it's all about family nevertheless. And so, listen, I'm excited. You're excited. You're in the building. It's your boy. It's R.O.D. And listen, nevertheless, and I need to say this, we're getting ready to introduce this great man of God here on A Father's Journey. This brother hails from Brooklyn, okay? He hails from Brooklyn, okay? So y'all know that's the borough of all the boroughs of the 5. They won't tell you that, but Brooklyn is the best borough out of all the boroughs, right? So we already know that. But he's out on the West Coast now, and but he's here in Atlanta visiting some family, man. And I was able to get this man of God to join on just a last-minute invitation, and he was gracious enough to accept it. And so, without further ado, I need everyone to give a warm welcome to my brother, Donald Cornelius. What's going on, sir?
What's going on? I am thrilled to be here. I really appreciate the invitation.
Yes, sir.
You know, this is exciting.
Yeah.
A father's journey and just manhood and dealing with the things that we have to deal with as men.
Absolutely.
I think it's something that's not spoken of as often as it should be.
Right.
A lot of times I think it's more, if you'll hear conversations about what men aren't as opposed to what they are. You'll hear more about, oh, he's a deadbeat, or he's this, or he's that. So for you to have a platform that expresses and gives a proper platform,
right?
We're going to call it out. If someone is missing the mark, we're not shunning away from that. I'm saying we, like, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I understand. Just men as a community.
We don't shun away from that. We call it like we see it.
Exactly.
But at the same time, I think it's important to have a platform to, number one, give a space for men to express themselves.
Right, absolutely.
Because people, a lot of times, men will say, yo, how you doing? What's up?
Right.
But they don't really want to know, right?
Exactly.
Like, it's just in passing. Don't give me too much information. But to have this platform, I was honored for the invitation. I really appreciate it.
Yo, I appreciate that, D, man. Thank you so much, and for being on the show. I appreciate the kind words, concerning the show, because this is what it's all about, just what you said. In fact, let's do Donald for the intro.
Oh, come on.
And then, we could probably do a little edit there. That was well said. I really do appreciate that. But you're right. I think, having a space that's created for men to be able to talk about the things that they're going through and to be candid about it, right? To be honest. And this is why I wanted to have you today, because I think people are going to learn by the conclusion of this show, that, okay, this dude is real, okay? And I've known Donald now since 1996. So we're talking about, that's almost 31 years, right? So that's how long I've known you, and your family, of course, and we're going to talk about them, and just an amazing family, and I know how much they meant to me. And just having you here, bro, just meant everything to me. So thank you for coming here. He's in the A, y'all, and he's here at the show. And so I had to grab him and steal a little bit of his time and to just talk about, your journey, man. So listen, you talked about just with men and everything and how hard sometimes we are with keeping it real or maybe just not expressing everything. But let's go back to your journey, man. You grew up in Brooklyn, all right? What was your childhood like? What type of child would you say you were when you were growing up?
Well, the youngest of three, I think I would say observant.
Okay.
I think overall you learn hook or crook. You learn from decisions made before you,
Right.
what to do and what
Right.
not to do.
Right.
So usually the younger ones get an opportunity to kind of let their siblings, the older siblings, be the battering ram. Right.
That's interesting.
So either you're going to like
That's interesting.
if the older sibling goes in and asks for something and they get a resounding no, then maybe that's not the time to ask, right?
Correct.
So you may, so you're very early on, I learned how to navigate
Okay.
as being the youngest. And I think I was inquisitive. I thought that I was always encouraged and fostered to speak up.
Okay.
Right. And have an opinion.
Right.
And even now, as I've grown older, I always question people that don't have an opinion on something. Right.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That maybe is a pet peeve.
Okay.
Maybe
What goes into that thought process? Like, why
Well,
does that bother you if someone doesn't have an opinion?
because
on
you
something?
gotta feel something. Right. And so to not have an opinion one way or the other, I'm not saying the person has to agree with me.
Right.
That's fine.
Okay.
But have an opinion. When people are, it's lukewarm, right? If you think
Okay.
about it, I'd
Right.
rather you hot or cold.
That's what
right?
the words say. Exactly.
And so
right.
I didn't take that initially
Okay.
directly from a biblical standpoint.
Right.
But now that I think about it, it does
Okay.
make sense, right? I'm taking it out of context a little bit.
No,
right?
but
But-
it's I see the relevance and I see the analogy there. No,
But
I got you.
That's kind of my approach to it. Like if there's situations and circumstances going on and a person is just fine with just however the wind or the wave takes them,
Right.
I have a problem with that.
Gotcha.
I would rather you say, yeah, let's go, or no, I don't agree with that.
Right.
Then you have pretty much given your position, and a person has to respect it. They don't have to like it,
Right.
but they not.
So let me ask you this, because and I want to talk to you about that because your parents, right? They were part of the civil rights movement. They grew up in that era, right? And they were very vocal and very much immersed in that battle and protesting and in that fight, if you will. Do you think how did that shape the idea of you being vocal and making sure that you had a voice? Because you said you was kind of fostered in that. So just speak to that part a little bit.
So understanding that my parents lived their experiences were very different from mine.
Right.
Growing up, right, being in the heart of the civil rights movement,
Right.
as opposed to me, my mom, in particular, is someone that is extremely, extremely nurturing, right?
Gotcha.
And my mom, if she had it her way, and I think being a parent myself,
Right.
I understand that there's a fine line between wanting your kids to mature and grow,
Right.
and the job of a parent is to have your children
Right.
prepared for life.
Absolutely.
Right?
Right.
And so I say all that to say that my mom, in her view, in her eyes, I'm always going to be her baby. And realistically speaking, I will
the youngest
always
of
be
three.
her baby.
Right, of course. Yeah.
But in the interim or in the middle part, you're still you're coming into your own, you're an adult.
Right.
And so it's like, okay, the training wheels were kicked off 20 years ago, right? Like
Absolutely.
realistically speaking.
Exactly.
But understanding, and part of that is just the protection of a parent. Both of my parents they will still to this day, and I am approaching 50.
Right.
And I have children of my own that I would love to say, like, I have kids. I understand.
Yeah.
They say things now that still shows that nurturing,
Right.
parental,
Right.
always look like, my mom says that you're a parent for life.
I was just going to say that.
Now I'm looking, and right now,
Yeah.
in when you're in it, you're like, I'm counting the years till we're empty nesters, right? Because as you know, parenting, there are a lot of sacrifices that you have to make.
Extreme.
Especially when you do not have your extended family in close proximity.
Yeah, in your case, right? Because
Right.
you're out on the West Coast.
Correct.
And so and obviously that affects a lot of things there,
Absolutely.
with that distance that it creates. But tell me about your father. Like, what would you say you got from your dad?
Oh, well,
Just as a child, what stuck out to you as a young boy and you're growing, whether it be in your adolescent years or whatever? What was it about your dad that you
the
saw?
biggest thing I think was just he was a man's man. He is a man's man, right?
Facts. I would totally
And
agree
so,
with that. Yeah.
and he was a provider. And so,
Right.
he always took care of us. Always. He was always there. He
Right.
was always present.
Right.
And so that sticks with me. Like the person that I am, I'm not that without my father.
Right, exactly.
And statistically, we can go
Right.
into the importance of a father being home.
Were you one of the few? And because you grew up in the projects, by the way,
Correct.
so we want to give
Absolutely.
some context to that.
Yeah.
Projects in Brooklyn, right? So so
I
nobody
mean,
thinks
your
that you-
audience didn't have to know all
Right.
that.
Well,
No, I'm just
right.
joking. I was, and
Right.
let me tell you,
Right.
projects, not the, and I'll say this.
Uh-huh.
Of course, people want to create hierarchies in projects, right? And
Okay.
there are some that are very bad.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
We lived in the projects, but because if I say Sheepshead Bay, people from Brooklyn
Right.
will be like, oh, Sheepshead Bay. Now Sheepshead Bay is a terror.
Yeah.
Back in the day, it was bad, but we
Yeah.
did not escape urine in the elevators,
Yeah.
elevators
Oh,
being
yeah,
out.
Yeah,
we didn't,
yeah.
you know.
Well, that's the bedrock to a project, right?
That's it.
it's
You
one of-
gotta
you
have
gotta
that,
have that, right?
You gotta have
At
an
the
elevator
minimum,
out.
right?
You
Exactly.
the
Gotta have an
elevator has to be
elevator
out every
Absolutely.
2 days.
Right.
You know, there has to be some type of,
Right.
Human something in the
Right.
corner. So that, but I always had the strength of my father, and I was a latchkey kid, right?
Okay.
So for those that don't know, I mean, you have an audience that would
Yeah.
know what a latchkey kid is.
Right, of course,
But both of my parents always worked,
Right.
right? So fortunately for me,
Mm-hmm.
I was close to all of my schools initially.
Right.
I was my elementary school.
Right.
Now I was.
But let me ask you this
Okay.
though: how many? Did a lot of your other friends have their fathers in their home?
So I would say I had my close friends did not.
Okay.
My closest friends growing up did not. And I'll say Brooklyn,
Right.
why everyone raves about it, you do, I do, is
Right.
because it is one of the most diverse
Very.
areas. It
Very.
prepares you for life.
It does.
Wherever you go, there's no such thing as a culture shock from someone who's from Brooklyn.
Absolutely.
No culture shock.
I'll say this very quickly. Let me insert this. I'll say this, that I was talking to somebody in my workplace, and I told them how in New York, we were always able to speak freely, even about race, right? I can say, a white guy can say, yeah, it's the black guy over there, yeah, or the Italian guy, or yeah, that's the Asian dude, and nobody got offended.
Nobody.
No, it was no PC involved.
Nothing.
You was able to speak freely, call that person. It wasn't like you needed to find other descriptive words.
It was none
it's
of
just
that.
it's like, yo, the black dude, the Italian dude, right? The Polish dude, that's the Irish dude. Oh, that's my Irish friend.
The Russian
Yeah,
kid.
the
It was-
Russian kid,
it
right?
was-
Exactly, and that's just what it was. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that and so you now let me ask you this though. Now, with your dad, consistent, he's there, which clearly makes a statement, right? For especially for a young black man in the projects, a young black kid, right?
Absolutely.
But now I want to take that piece and let's add a little something to that. You also, for all intents and purposes, you grew up in the church,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
So your family is saved, right? Mom, dad in church, active members in church.
Absolutely.
Right? And so all of you guys going to church, you and you got a brother and a sister as well. So as you said, youngest of 3. What was so for you, let me ask you, how did you manage living in the projects? There's still temptation.
Of course.
There's
Oh, yeah.
still things you got to navigate through,
Absolutely.
right? Because not everybody in your projects is saved,
No.
right? So how do you deal with? You've got accountability from both parents.
Right.
You're in a safe home. You're in the projects.
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff around you. How does a young Donald get through that and overcome and share in this segment of the journey? We'll get to the jump in a second, but the part of this journey. What was the challenges of growing up as a saved young man in the projects?
So I think, the Bible speaks of raising or bringing up a child in the way that they should go. And
Right.
when they get old, they won't depart.
Right.
So I think that foundationally, I think because my parents were in church and they were raising us and made it a priority
Right.
for us to go to church
Okay.
and express the importance of Christ
Right.
and following those guidelines.
Correct.
Made it easier to navigate through and
Right.
be able to deal with those situations
Right.
because temptations are there. You
Right.
see people because, as I said, being a latchkey kid,
Right.
a lot of times my parents would be going to work before I would go to school. Right.
Right.
So I have to go to school. Do I want to play hooky?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
I know my parents ain't coming.
they-
My father's working all the way in Gowanus.
Right.
And my mom is all the way
Yeah.
on Avenue U. So there's no way
There's-
she's. So I had the opportunity.
there was
So you
opportunity
still
to
have
get into
to
some
make
stuff, yeah.
decisions,
Right,
right?
right.
Decisions have to be made, right? But you have to think about what's been instilled in you, right?
Right.
And that what's fortified through,
Right.
going to church.
Right.
And then what are you seeing? What example are you seeing
Right.
in your day-to-day life?
Gotcha.
So that made it easier.
Okay.
Of course, I didn't live a perfect life. I
Right,
made
of course.
mistakes. I made mistakes. There were decisions that I willfully made.
Right.
There was things I willfully wanted to do.
Right.
And I did eat.
Right.
So it wasn't any situation.
Exactly.
It wasn't a situation where, because realistically speaking, back then, and it applies to now,
Right.
you can't put a bubble around your kids. You can only protect them so much.
Right.
Then you have to trust
Right.
that as it speaks, going back to what is instilled, a parent's job is to prepare your children for life.
That's it.
Because you're not going to be with them always.
Right.
But you have to trust
Right.
that through God's word, through the values that you put into them, that's your legacy.
Right, exactly.
So you have to
Right.
put that and put that in them so that they know outside of being around you.
Right.
They know how to, when they get that crossroad,
Right.
because spending time with people, there will be those crossroads. Hey, we're not going to school today. Let's go to this person's having a hooky party.
Right.
Let's go to the beach. It's a nice day. Why are we going to school? You have to then make that decision. Hey, I would love to.
Right.
Because to keep it real, I'd love to.
Yeah.
But part of it, and it goes back to having a father in the home, my
Yeah.
pops will kill me.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the consequence
So is
that you
it
knew
worth
was real.
it?
Yeah.
Now, it does get to a point, realistically speaking,
Uh-huh.
where I would say there is a midnight curfew beating,
Right.
12:01, and a 3 a.m.
Okay.
Every kid gets to that point also.
Oh, yes.
So
Okay.
if I'm going to get a beating at 12:01,
Then you might as well just go
I'm
on
going to
and
get a
stay
beating.
at the three.
Let me get
Yeah.
the 4 o'clock,
Yeah,
4 a.m.
that's
beating,
it.
right?
Yeah.
So that happens too.
That's
But
interesting. That's
I'm
good.
sorry.
I like that, Donald. No, that's really good. I like that. And I think that's part of a mindset, right? That says, look, if I'm going to, have to get the same consequence for me rushing and trying my best to meet the mark, and I'm gonna miss the mark
And
anyway.
I'm missing
right.
the event,
exactly.
the stuff
right.
anyway. Right.
It goes back to what our bishop, the late, Bishop Robert Moe Sr. used to say. Don't go to hell from the church, right?
Right.
If you're going to get whipped, just go out there. That's it.
Absolutely.
But let me ask you a question though. I want to get to the jump.
Okay.
So the jump part of this segment, as we're talking and going through, just the processes of life as you're describing them, growing up. The jump now kind of gets us to a place where you can share with us today. When did you think Donald became a man? When was it that you really said, okay, I'm no longer in this particular place. I'm no longer under this level of guidance anymore, if you will, right? Because you talked about the accountability, growing up in a home, parents training you in the way you should go, scripture. Now you're in a space where, okay, your decisions, you may not get the consequences from mom and dad, but they may come another way.
Absolutely.
Right? So when did Donald become a man? When did you make that jump?
When you first posed that question, I was going to say when I came back 3-1 on Golden State. But I was thinking something silly, but Sorry.
But listen.
Cut that out.
That's what I'm saying. No, don't cut that out. No, cut that.
Remove that from
Just so y'all know, Donald and I, we banter on sports a lot. So
Yeah.
he was going to make some innuendos along the way.
Right.
But go ahead.
But I think so I would say understanding that life is real. There was where I had to make decisions for myself. It happens presently.
Right.
It's not something that you have arrived, right?
Right.
The saying is, if you find the Buddha, kill it. Right.
Right.
And what that means is ultimately when you feel that you have arrived and
Okay.
there is full enlightenment,
Okay.
that's where you're really
Okay.
completely
Right.
off.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
You have to kind of always be evolving, learning. I think there was a time once I moved back. I moved because I was a kid that, although my parents sheltered me as much as they possibly could,
Right.
Brooklyn was the element of Brooklyn was still involved. So
Sure.
I got an opportunity to move out of New York. And I moved to the country. I moved down south.
Right.
And it was a bit of a, number one, I have to give, hats off to my parents
Okay.
for being willing to do that.
Right.
Right? Willing to say, you know what?
Did you have any sense of what that move was going to do though? Did you give that move a level of consideration to say, was it based on there's something more or better than where I'm at, and I'm just going to take my chance on what's to come? Or did you have a plan, or did you see yourself in what you were going to do when you made this move to the South?
Realistically speaking, no. I knew that I didn't want to. The only thought was not to tarnish my parents' name, right?
Okay.
Because of I could think about the sacrifice. I didn't think in totality of them being willing to do that.
Correct.
But I thought, all right, I'm going to do the
And
right
they make
thing.
this move with you.
Correct.
Right. Gotcha.
Right.
Okay. Right.
And so I'm talking about when I was younger.
When younger. Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
I'm talking
my
about
bad.
when I moved to Alabama.
Oh, gotcha. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Right.
Yeah.
My bad. Okay,
so
gotcha. Okay.
being willing to do that
Okay.
so that I could get it was a bit, if you think back in the day, there was something called the Fresh Air Fund.
Yeah,
right.
I remember Fresh Air
So
Fund. Oh, yeah.
it was a bit of a fresh air fund for me.
Yeah.
A different environment, may do this kid right.
Gotcha.
And it
Yeah.
did. It gave me a different perspective. I think it's valuable. As an adult,
Right.
I have moved from New York to the West Coast with a pit stop in Atlanta.
Right.
And I think that experience, being able to do that when I was younger,
Right.
it brings a certain amount of, resolve.
What do you think? So with that being the case, what would you say is the one most? I mean, there's a lot of things, I'm sure, but what was the one thing you think you got from that experience in Alabama for the time that you were there?
So I think the biggest thing was the ability to be resilient. I think coming to a new location where,
Right.
yes, some people,
Right.
but overall,
Right.
all the familiar people, the people you grew up with,
Right.
you're going to have to reestablish
Right.
connections
Right.
all over again.
Exactly.
Right? So, of course, it's the same situation where we spend more time outside of our family than
Right.
we do with our family,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
If we're working or we're in school or there's activities as adults, we
Right.
work, we travel, whatever, we're sleeping,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so there are times where we're away from our family, and so it's important to be able to establish those relationships, right?
Right,
Get
right.
outside of your comfort zone.
Right.
It takes you outside your comfort zone.
Well, that brings me to another question. So let me ask you this. How important is it for a man to understand how to maneuver in different environments, to be able to have enough elasticity to move? Because you moved a lot, and we'll touch on some of the other subsequent moves, after Alabama. But like, how important is it for a man? What does a man need to know, and how can a man who may have only known one way? Like, we got some people, I'm sure you can almost go back to the projects right now.
I know people
And
have
you know
never
people
left.
that have not left, right? They're still there, right? Same in my, where I came up in my projects, right? And that's all they know. What does a man need to know? How does he get there?
I think it takes faith.
Okay.
Right? Because sometimes, you have to trust God that, number one, the decision shouldn't be made to move without the direction of God.
Right.
Right.
Gotcha. Yep.
You gotta pray about it.
Absolutely.
Right? And you gotta see
Right.
if it's the right move to make.
Right.
Timing, I think, is everything. So a combination of those things, and then there'll be a certain resolve. There'll be a certain settling in your spirit that this is an okay move. This is to do. Now, it still doesn't mean you'll know everything.
Right.
It still doesn't mean you won't have to establish a community when you get there.
Right.
And especially, my wife and I, when we made the move, this is as an adult.
Right.
We had young children.
Right.
Right. So that's a whole nother thing, right? Where you have young children and you don't have the nuclear family that, shout outs to, grandparents and aunts and uncles and all of that stuff.
A community is necessary with young kids.
And it does take a village.
Right, it does.
But we live in times where if you don't know the village, you got to be the village. So my wife and I, as going back to the anticipation of being, empty nesters.
Right.
We made a lot of sacrifices as parents.
Yeah.
There was a lot of things we didn't experience a lot of date nights.
Right.
Everything was all in together. We're watching, straight Disney movies.
Right.
G movies until the cows came home.
Wow.
Right. And so for us, that sacrifice was worth it because the protection of our children was vitally important. Even when I was in New York, initially, because our children were young, it was important for, my wife stayed home for a while, and was instrumental in raising the children, being an at-home mom.
Let me ask you this. So 2 quick questions for you. One, you talk about the kids. Y'all both obviously were committed to devoting time and the necessary nurturing that it took for the kids, right? Like you said, you didn't do a lot of date nights. It was whatever we're gonna do, we're doing it as a family, right?
Family vacations,
all that, which is big, and a lot of black families don't really do that, to be honest. But I think that was very powerful in the sense that y'all have been able to create that kind of setting. But what did that do for you as a father? Were you afraid when your kids were born? Were you afraid of not knowing what to do as a father? What was your mindset when you became a father, and then as you're raising young kids?
So when I became a father, I had my daughter first.
Right.
It changed my view, and people say this, but it really changed my view of how I viewed women.
Okay.
And it made me rethink how I viewed women prior to being married. Right. Just in general, because now having a child and having a daughter, there's just, you are the first example of how a man should be, right?
Absolutely.
And then there's a tough love element. That's also, so you want your daughter and your son to have a level of street smarts. Yeah. But you don't want them to be exposed too much. Right. Because
it's a very delicate balance.
It's a very delicate balance.
Right.
We didn't have social media.
Right.
Right. And so it was very different from us. We would, occasionally see something we wasn't supposed to see from somebody else's house. Right. We went over to visit, let's say a friend. Right. Because I'll say this, my parents wasn't big on sleepovers.
Oh yeah, no. Most parents during that day
they weren't big on sleepovers, and it wasn't widespread sickness the way it is now.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So you fast forward to a time where everyone has a computer on their hip. Yep. Cell phone.
Yep.
Everything, the World Wide Web, everything is available instantaneously. There is no such thing now as delayed gratification.
And you know what's so interesting about that, though? It's like, when we were growing up, as you said, right, occasionally we might see something or we're exposed to something we shouldn't have seen, right? But it was like when we were locked in and, we were in a room and, your parents felt, okay, they're safe. I know where they are. Now, to your point, which I think is a great point you're making, now it's like if your kid is in the room,
what are you doing in there?
what are you doing in there now, right?
Right.
Exactly. So, because
Exactly.
if they got a phone, they're exposed to
the
the
world.
whole world. So, now it's like, give me the phone, go outside.
Right.
So I want you to kind of go outside now. So it's like this reverse engineering we have to do in that sense. But, raising your daughter and you showing her that example and what that means. What's your expectation for your children? You got a son and a daughter, right?
Correct.
So your daughter's the oldest and your son, and how old are your kids, if you don't mind me asking?
15 and 13.
15 and 13. So they're at that real teenage age where, a lot of the vicissitudes,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So basically, what's your as a father, what's your expectation for your children?
So I want them to be well-rounded.
Okay.
I want them to be able to accept no.
Okay.
And I think just the way
To accept no, why is that? What do you mean by that?
Okay, so society has, I think, to a large degree, weakened. And the Bible's, they're weaker but wiser. My son at his age, my
Right.
daughter at her age,
Right.
were, I would say, wiser as it pertains to, technology.
Right.
Because we're exposed to more.
Exactly.
But I was more street smart than they are.
Okay. Right.
I think that I need them to be able to pivot. Sometimes when I think society, when they start giving out participation awards,
Right.
people,
Yeah.
in life, there are no's.
Yeah.
And so you hear a no, what are you going to do about it?
I think that's so
it's
good.
not the end of the world.
I think that's so
right.
good.
A no is okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So let me find a yes.
Yeah.
And I don't have to I tell my children, it's an old saying, don't let it put a bee in your bonnet, right? Don't let something that didn't turn out the way you expected it
Right.
to ruin your day, ruin your life. You have to pivot.
I think that's so good, D, because I think what it does, it eradicates any entitlement. That would
Absolutely.
come. So I
Yeah.
think that teaching them to understand how to respond to no's.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's good. I got one more question, and we're going to jump into the justice part.
Okay.
And then I have another question for you, and then we'll get ready to wrap it up. But I want to ask you, how hard is marriage? Is it hard?
So I'll say this. It's not hard if you're willing to be pliable, right? Because the person that you met at the time
Right.
when you were dating, we've heard dating is a lie.
Right.
So people put their best foot forward. And then as time progresses, you get to a point where you're married and you have enough in common that you
Right.
want to build a life together.
Right.
And then once children come, there are sacrifices that are made.
Absolutely.
And so you have to be willing to accept that. I'll say this. We learned this later on.
Right.
But you still have to keep a priority on your spouse, right?
Facts.
And that's something
I
that
agree.
we learned further because
Right.
down the line, you initially put all of your energy into your children.
Yeah.
Because so the spouse a lot of time is on the back
Yeah,
burner.
backward. Yeah, they get
Right?
somewhat neglected.
They
Yeah,
get
if you will.
neglected.
Yeah.
And so you have to be able to learn how to deal with that.
Right.
Right? Accept it.
Right.
And, so long story short, marriage is not difficult.
Right.
You just have to be able to roll with it.
But what do you think for you and your wife, right? And this might help a lot of men who are looking to be married or they're dating and, they're still trying to figure out the dynamics of a relationship if they even decide they want to do something, long term, right? And invest in a marriage. What's just maybe one key point for you and your wife, what's essential to a successful marriage for you guys?
Communication.
Communication.
I think, and it sounds cliche, but communication, you have to be willing to have those difficult conversations.
Right.
And push to not let things linger.
Right.
I think that's the biggest thing because you're not going to always agree, but you can't let it linger because if it lingers,
Absolutely.
other things start.
Yeah.
If you just take it from this example,
Right.
you have you're already maybe incorrectly knocked down a peg once your children come, right? All your focus is them.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And so the things that you should be fostering at the same time,
Right.
is no longer your primary focus anymore.
Exactly.
Right? So that already creates somewhat of a natural wedge.
Right.
And then you have discussions or disagreements or things that you don't see eye to eye on.
Right.
And instead of addressing it and moving forward, you let that linger.
Right.
So that creates a greater wedge.
Absolutely.
That's why I think the communication, the honesty, having the difficult conversations
Right.
are vitally important.
Right.
Because before you know it, the enemy
Oh, yeah.
will position something
Absolutely.
to be there
Right.
for the
Exactly.
draw,
Ex-
for the listening, for
Yeah,
so
that's a good
you
point.
have to
Yeah.
you have to kind of cut the enemy off.
You have to. And you got to close that gap quickly.
Yeah.
Because if you give him space,
That's it.
then that's it. You
Yeah.
know, he's going to certainly, like you say, he'll machinate something and it's
Yeah.
going to cause more
And
problems.
then you'll be sleeping in other rooms.
Yeah,
and,
right.
You know, roommates, like bosom
Exactly.
buddy, like you. That's not what you want. You
no,
want
definitely
to
don't want
have.
that.
You know, the
No.
Bible speaks about not letting the sun go down on your wrath, right?
Exactly.
And so being able to be angry.
Yeah.
We don't have to agree all the time.
No, you don't.
You know?
Well, I think there's a power in that to especially in a marriage, right? This is something you're going to be with for the rest of your life. At least this is what you commit to.
Yeah.
Then you have to learn to
Yeah.
agree to disagree.
Yeah.
And do that and find a way to do that healthily that doesn't compromise still the forward movement
Yeah.
and the progress that needs to be there.
Now, I will say this, initially at the onset of your relationship in your marriage, you got to be on the same page.
Absolutely.
Now, you will evolve
Right.
and
Into
things
different-
and
having different ideas
You'll
about
be a
different
different
things.
person,
Right.
hopefully.
Exactly.
They'll be a different person, and then you learn how to
Correct.
to live together
Exactly.
and evolve together.
Exactly.
But there's no way starting out,
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, it's important. My children have to go to church. And my
Yeah.
wife's like, oh, then maybe.
Maybe, right. Yeah,
Let's,
exactly.
you know.
Yeah. I think there's an importance to that.
Yeah. So that has
Yeah.
to be pinpoint focus off the rip.
I think that's so good,
Yeah.
and that's a great segue into, because to me, I look at that as like, okay, what are your convictions, right, when you get into a relationship? And so the last segment of this is about convictions, and I want to talk to you about justice, okay? God is a God of justice, right? Like you do something, like in other words, even when we look at Christ, I think sometimes we forget that there's a term in the Bible called propitiation, which means that somebody had to pay the price. There was a penalty that somebody had to pay. Like I know we think, God, Jesus has atoned our sins, but he had to take a beat down for that, right?
That's right.
And so there's always because he's a justice God, he's a God of justice. Sin he hates, somebody's got to pay for the sin, right? Anything we do wrong, somebody's got to pay for it. I tell people all the time, I can go and shoot somebody and God can forgive me if I repent, but I'm still going to go to jail, right? There's still consequences. But so we're wired, I believe, as believers, and I think this is important for men, that we understand justice, we understand righteousness. Righteousness is to make sure it's not just right living, or you don't go to a club, or you didn't have a drink or whatever. It's so much bigger than that. It's bigger than that. Righteousness is saying that I must make sure that there's equilibrium to a degree, or there is a certain element of justice that's being served, right? And you're looking at people, the oppressed, or those who are marginalized and disenfranchised. And I'm not necessarily just labeling that down to race, but I'm talking about in any situation, right? If there's something that is off balance or whatever it is, right? Jesus said, I've come to, right, give sight to the blind and, to bind up the wounds of the brokenhearted, right? And so these are things where something was broken and the anointing that's on Christ comes to fix those things. What do you believe is your conviction? What do you think Donald is here to do? What bothers you? What burdens you? What gets to just makes your skin crawl if you see it and you say, I got to respond to that?
I think a lot of what you said, for me, it has cost me some times where I have to speak up.
Right.
But I think anytime someone is taken advantage of, I just cannot, even when because I will speak, the Lord will speak to me.
Right.
And he's not telling me don't say anything.
Right.
But of course, your mind is quick. So of course, a lot of times when you hear stuff, you initially have an immediate response.
Correct.
but that might not be the best response,
Right,
right?
right.
You do have to use some tact. You do have to use, some type of skill in your words, right? Because sometimes you can say something and it be the right thing,
Right.
but delivery was terrible.
Correct.
And so it's not received,
It's
right?
not received, right.
So I think from a standpoint, if someone is mistreated,
Okay.
if someone is taken advantage of,
Right.
if someone abuses their power,
Right.
if someone in any way manipulates a situation
Right.
for their benefit, the looking down on people,
Right.
or putting them in a box,
Right.
where this is your ceiling, this is the best you can do.
Right.
That
So that bothers you. That's
yeah.
something that you
Absolutely.
instantly respond to without even giving it a lot of thought. It's just, if I see a model of that, it's going to bother.
Yeah.
How important is that for you, though?
it's the fabric of who I am,
Okay.
right?
Right.
Given a situation, I've had situations where I was advocating for people, for individuals,
Right.
and it can make you a target.
Right. Oh,
right?
absolutely.
It can make you a target because there is it's always seemed, if a person is not going along with the abuse,
Right.
is not accepting of the abuse,
Right.
then if it's only one person, they're the troublemaker,
Right,
right?
right,
They're
exactly.
the one that is expecting
Yeah.
respect,
Exactly.
expecting equality, expecting fairness.
Have
right?
you ever helped someone that didn't want to be helped? They didn't want your advocacy? And what happens in a situation like that?
In
for
those situations, sometimes it's one of those things where you just have to do it because it's right. And
So it's not so much about them wanting it, because they may not even know that it's best for them in terms of what you're fighting for.
yeah,
But you just know that you still have to do it anyway.
There's been times that I've done it and it wasn't appreciated. There was times that now I don't force. I have to say this. I don't force it, but it might be something that needs to be addressed, because I
Right.
look at abuse
Right.
as it doesn't have to be directed at me.
Okay.
Today it's you.
Yeah.
Tomorrow it's me.
Correct.
So I address it because
Right.
that behavior is not acceptable.
I think that's great, though. I think that's what empathy is all about. Right?
Yeah.
Empathy is not so much waiting until something happens and hits your doorstep.
Right. It's like,
Right.
whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, sorry to be
Right,
them.
right,
No,
exactly, right,
It's
right,
one
right,
of those
right.
things that it just innately kicks in,
Yeah.
and it's like, that wasn't right.
But to me, that's what the anointing is all about.
And I'm not a moral compass, but
Right.
I do think we are able to feel, and you can also see it and see how the person receives it.
Right.
If you're trying to go out of your way to break someone's spirit,
Right.
yeah, that's
That's big. Let me ask you, this is my last question here. I'm going to ask you this quickly. What's the state of the church like for you? Describe the church. How do you see the church? The body of Christ?
the body
as a
of Christ
whole?
or my
Yeah.
local church.
You can express on both.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I think my local church is phenomenal.
Shout them out, by the way.
Okay, shout
Please,
outs
yes.
to the Rock Church Bay Area, Pastor Christopher Foster, his
Let's
wife,
go.
Lady Nakia
Pastor
Foster.
Christopher Foster and Lady
Fantastic.
Foster. Yes,
Uh,
yes.
501
Let's
Auto
go.
Center Drive in.
And you just guys got a new building,
We just
right?
got a new building.
Congratulations,
yes.
man. Come on,
and
man.
we're in the
Good.
process
I need some
of
claps. We need some
yeah.
claps on that. That's what's up. That's
Fantastic.
what's up. Awesome.
So I think ideally, church should be about the healing process.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
Because there are a lot of people that they have kind of second,
Right.
and you know how they have like, what do they always say about people who smoke, right? Like,
Right.
people can sometimes be sick,
Right.
even if they're not the smoker, right?
Right.
And that's how I think a lot of times church hurt happens. Someone hears about it. It doesn't directly impact them. They're not
Right.
directly the recipient of it.
Right.
But what they do is they use that as a crutch. The enemy will magnify it and make it a crutch
Absolutely.
for them not to come to Christ.
Exactly.
Well, remember what they did to my mama. They
Right.
took them tithes and they didn't do.
Right.
And now I ain't going to church. I can't trust that church.
Exactly.
See, when a person comes to church,
Right.
they should feel the love of Christ.
They should.
that should be the first thing that meets them.
Absolutely.
Before they hear the word,
Yeah.
they should feel the love.
Right.
They should feel the difference.
I agree.
It should be a difference,
Yeah.
right? And then once they get there,
Right.
all the other things will complement
Correct.
the love of Christ.
Correct.
Right? Because
Exactly.
God is love.
Right.
Right? It's not so with my local church, I think that has been the focal point, and I
That's
think we
awesome.
have not tooting own horn, but
Oh, understand.
the church is knocking it out the park with that.
That's
because
awesome.
the focus is, we're there to redeem
Correct.
the lost. We're there for the lost, to
Nice.
draw.
Right.
And how do we draw them? Through love.
Through love.
Through the word.
Right.
Through, being able to be vulnerable.
Right.
Right? We don't have that hierarchy of big me, little yous.
That's
we
important.
don't we
That's
don't
good.
lead
That's so
with
good.
with titles.
Right.
Those type of things make a situation where there's a tug or a pull on your heart
Right.
to become vulnerable. It creates a hurdle or a
Absolutely.
roadblock because
Yes,
we
yes.
don't do you a new member, come up to the front, tell us your
Right.
whole life story. Because one of the greatest fears, right,
Yeah.
is public speaking.
It's public speaking.
Right?
Yep.
And
That's
people are fearful
fact.
of that. So we embrace.
Yeah.
We put our arms, we
That's
wrap
awesome.
our arms around them.
That's good.
And so that makes the transition
Right.
so much easier.
That is
right?
so good.
And we're obviously Bible based. Our church, we're not sugarcoating stuff.
That's good.
We address
That's
stuff
good.
head
Right.
on.
That's good.
In a way that
That's good.
people understand and
Right.
they're able to get it
Right.
from a standpoint where it makes sense.
That's so good. Listen, do I have another 5 minutes, guys? Or less than what I got? I got another 5? I'm good? Okay, all right. I want you to talk to us real quick, and then we're gonna shout out.
Do you want me to talk about the body of Christ as a whole?
Yeah, quickly.
Quickly.
Go ahead.
Body of Christ, I think there are I think the focus in some churches, and I can only talk about the ones that I've been a direct member
Right.
or participate in.
Okay, that's
I
fair.
think it
Yeah.
has a bad or a negative stigma.
Okay.
I think because there is too much of the waters have been muddied.
Okay. I agree.
And so there's too many shades of gray as it pertains to the body of Christ.
Right.
In a lot of ways, God is black and white,
Yeah.
and he gives mercy and grace. That's where the little gray comes in, because the thought is that you have to eventually get to.
Yeah.
You have to convert, right?
Correct,
You want to be
right, yeah. You
converted
gotta be
at some
transformed
point.
at some point,
You got to
right.
be transformed
Right.
by the renewing of your mind. So
Right.
as information, it's just like when you get more information, you ought to respond to that information.
Correct.
And that doesn't always happen. That's not always pushed, right? And so I think it's important for the body of Christ as a whole to understand that it's not little silos.
Right.
If it's a body of Christ,
Right.
then we should be working in conjunction together for the
Right.
lost.
Well, and I say this because what you're saying is so profound, and you're right. We're very disconnected, and we work in silos. We'll say what we should do, but we don't do it, right? Kingdom puts us all together, right? Paul talks about the body parts and how one is not greater than the other, and they're all unnecessary. And he takes me to Ephesians 4:11, where it says, okay, Christ gives to the church. You got apostles, pastors, prophets, teachers, evangelists, and they equip the church and perfect the works of the church or the gifts of the church, right? But the Bible says until they all come into the unity of the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God. So the problem is that we're working, but the until part is like Christ is saying the church leadership has a job and a mandate to do something until. Until implies that there is a time frame. And what is that saying? There's a goal to be met. What is the goal? For us to come into the unity of the faith. And to your point, which I think is so profound, because we don't see that. Right? It's like, if your church is there, my church is here, and, you're going to do your thing. But what would happen, right, if I said to just like, you know what, Donald, what you have over there is very strong, and there's so many aspects to what you do that's much more stronger than what I have here. can you bring some of that here, and whatever I have, I can bring to you. We can tighten that fellowship up even greater, because what happens is that my job, if I'm a leader, is to make sure that the people are being properly served. So if Christ gave these gifts to the church, then that means then they need to come into a place where we can cross-pollinate and we can integrate and we can see the growth come into that, but we just don't see that. No. It's not there. So last question for you, and I got it, because you and I talk about this stuff sometimes, and you know, on our sports show we talk about it. We're going to mention a sports show in a minute. But I just want to get your take quickly. I should have jumped out the gate with this one, though, because this is a real good one. We might have to come back with a part 2. Okay. I'm going to have to fly you back out on this one, though. You know what I mean? I got to fly you back. You know what I'm saying?
Flew out. I got flew out.
You got flew now. He flew now, right.
Flew out.
So the thing is this. What's your take on, we see black men in particular, the imagery that we see, black men, black women, black culture, okay? The images that we see, the music, content, in the artistry of black people, and just the whole exploitation. What's your thought? Do you feel black communities being exploited? Oh. Is it bothering you? Where do the men in particular, where are they playing a role in this? What's your thoughts on what's happening to black men as it relates to what we see in the culture, from family to entertainment to whatever else you want to add to that? Yeah. What are you seeing, and what's happening, and what's dangerous and destructive, and what is a remedy even for what we're seeing, particularly with black men, and then of course the black community as a whole?
It goes back to, I think, them being on the take, if you will.
Okay.
They're being bought, right? And because to a large degree they're out of their place,
right, as
the way God sees where the man should be, right? They're out of their place because they're not in the homes. They're out of their place because they can be bought. The type of music,
right,
and the way they're depicted, it doesn't speak to all black men.
Correct.
So the media plays a part in that.
Absolutely.
The media is designed to showcase and highlight certain things.
Right.
They sensationalize it.
Right.
Or you know, they want to put it on Front Street.
Right.
And make it something that, because someone can watch, you know, the internet in India. Correct. Right? They'll see an image of someone, a black man, let's just say.
Right.
Looking or being depicted in a certain light.
Correct.
And take that as gospel.
Wow.
Right? And so the media plays a huge part in that.
Absolutely.
But men in general, speaking black men, need to, you know, take responsibility and be accountable for their actions.
Right.
The music that they're putting out, what is it doing to the community? What is it providing? Yes, it is putting you in a different tax bracket,
right,
but it's destroying your community. And I know people say, well, if they're getting the check, it's, you know, easy to say if you were getting this, this, and this.
Correct.
But from a standpoint for the people that are on the outside looking in, the people that aren't consumed by that, they have to look at it as, this is the when you want to impact someone, you get bad service at a restaurant, right? What do?
I'm going to make it known.
And what else?
If I'm getting bad service at a restaurant, I'm going to tell them what I don't like.
But let's just say there.
What do you mean, in that moment, or
no,
is it
in the moment, or continually? So it's not a trick question.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. I'm going to be definitely upset about it, but
you address it.
Yeah, I'm address it.
The service was bad.
Yeah.
But then the other thing is that you don't go back to that restaurant. You don't give them your money.
That's good.
And so how do we impact? Look at what has happened to Target, for example.
Correct.
Right?
Right.
We did show that we have power.
Yeah.
If we unify.
Right.
What if people said, you know what, that garbage that you're putting out, I'm not listening to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And if Spotify, if you continue, every sponsor possible that we're looking for. No, I'm just saying, Spotify, if you're going to continue to play that, I don't want my subscription anymore.
That's it.
It would take people making those drastic moves.
Right.
And, you know, dealing with the record companies. Listen, we don't want to hear that. It's been something that's already, you know, been it's a dead horse that's being beat.
Exactly.
Everybody's pants are low.
Yeah.
Everyone has free-form locks.
Right.
Enough is enough. It's over.
No, you're absolutely right, Donald. And I think, it goes back to some of the earlier points that you made, right? Having an opinion on something, right? And I think sometimes we've been so put to sleep, we're so dull by everything that we see around us. So as we consume entertainment, and particularly for our people, the consumption of materialism and these things, because, black people, we don't always have a lot, right? So the minute we get money, right, we see it evidence in our tax returns or something that we get a bulk of money, and it's like, okay, it's gone, right? Because we got to get what we never had. And we feel validated by these things. And like you say, there's entities and systems that
and it's
understand
media that pushes
and
that. Social media
definitely is a key component that perpetuates that. So that's the thing that we need to understand. And I think there needs to be this, and I'll just say it to for this part as we end this here. And I think people like yourself can help ignite, revitalize, or even bring for the first time an awareness to people.
And I'll say this one more thing.
Yeah.
Unlike our parents' generation,
right,
this generation is afraid to address the kids.
Oh, big time.
My pops, your pops wouldn't have a problem if you seen somebody's kid, it didn't even have to be your kid.
It didn't have to be your
kid. If they were out of pocket, hey, what are you doing?
Exactly. Yeah, you're going to get punched in the chest, no question.
Because we have also, because of that void of a father figure that would at least have them somewhat in line. People out of their parents' sight can act foolish, can, not personally follow what they're being taught. Right. But the fact is that gap between our communication and being able to address. I've seen videos of people on the train. Going crazy, dancing, doing all kind of stuff that we wouldn't dare, cursing in front of elderly or women. You wouldn't dare. Back in the day, you wouldn't dare allow that to happen.
Wouldn't happen.
And now this generation, we have to take some responsibility and accountability for us saying, it ain't me. At least I'm not the target. I'm not the one they cursing at. Let me just look straight ahead.
That needs to bother us.
Because the kids will kill you today. They will. Now, that is right. They will kill you. But I think
that's true, Fran.
Now, that is absolutely true. It is a different time because their sensitivity, and be it video games, be it, the lawlessness, be it the fact that no one has held them accountable as a kid.
Right.
Now, if a person is in their 20s and never had the or discipline, it's tough.
It's tough.
It's very tough.
Because they operate out of ignorance, so they don't know. I think you're making some valid points, and Fran makes a good point too, right? Because they're actually scared of the kids. And I think a lot of that, when you look at the systemic makeup of stuff, right, you take fathers out of the home, you got mothers now who are trying to raise kids, right, as a single parent. So there's a fragmentation there that's huge, right? The mother's overwhelmed. She's working 2 jobs, whatever. The kids are unattended to. There is no structure. And then we got this other thing that has been instituted, which took time, but now here we are, where you've got this, and you talked about it earlier with the participatory awards and all this other stuff, where I just feel there's this idea of sensitivity for the kids, where we have to address more of their emotional development, which is important, and I don't want anybody to misconstrue what I'm saying. I think emotional, because we got that when we were growing up, but it just looked different.
It looked very
different. and because what happened is you matured a lot faster, because what really hit you was the awareness and the severity of your actions.
Absolutely.
That's what made us mature. That's what made us understand that, okay, I'm 6, but I'm going to be 7 real soon. Although my birthday is 6 months away, but tomorrow I'm going to be 7 because, you know what, I got popped in the head because I didn't understand the gravity of what I was doing.
Absolutely.
And so you get a parent that's going to share that, and some parents did talk that through after you done got your butt whipped, you know what I'm saying? But you're going to talk about that, and you're going to be able to give it some context, if you will. But I think what's happened, all of these different dynamics with the fragmentation of the home, parents in there, like yourself, I grew up with 2 parents in the home, father and mother were there, and what mama missed, daddy didn't, and you know what I'm saying, and what daddy saw, and maybe daddy was having a day where I might have been thrown out the window, but mama's nurturing grace came in and saved us, right? So we had the balance of what that was. But I think that there's a fear with the kids, and then there's because again, kids are being emboldened now because of, like you said, video games and things that they're exposed to. And I do think, and I'll say this last thing, and I know we can go on and on and on, because we got to go get some food, D. Talk about the restaurant, you know what I'm saying? So I just feel, and you said something that I hope everyone gets and they walk away with this. I think this was powerful what you said tonight, because you said a lot of great stuff. But here's the thing that have really stuck with me, and I think is important. Is that you said your expectation for your children is for them to understand no. And I think what's happening is, I believe that we have caused children today and adults, we have caused this or created this idea that we're inculcating into kids today and even into adults, that you will be and can be almost anything you want to be. Anything you want to be. And you can have it, you can do it, you can become it, you can manifest it, you can speak it, and all that. Now, in theory, I understand that. We encourage. But I think what happens is that we are telling people we're not being honest with kids. Generation, you may not have the ability to do that. Now, I know this is going to be tough.
And it's tough. It's tough for me. I disagree a little bit.
But because here's the thing. You could say, okay, you can be this, you can be that, but then there are some things that you might not be able to do, but because if you are persuaded or you're hearing constantly something that is not coming with true evaluation. If I could just say, D, you can run through that wall. You can run through that wall. You can run through that wall. You're going to run through that wall. But you're not going to take into account that there might be something on the other side of that wall, or there might be material in that wall that's going to preclude you. There might be straight rebar in that wall that's going to stop you from going through that wall. So we're telling people what they can become and do without a true analysis. So when you look at the scriptures, Acts 16:6, Paul and the disciples are all over the place. They're spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ all through the Mediterranean. But then there were some cities where the Holy Spirit said, "Not going. You're not going into Mysia. You're not going into Bithynia. You're not going into Asia Minor. You're not going that way. We're going this way. And there's a man over here in Macedonia that needs you here, because that's where you need to be." If we teach kids and even adults to go where they or get an understanding of first where you need to be, what God called you to be. I don't think everybody's going to be a zillionaire.
Right, I agree.
And not everybody wants to be a zillionaire. Because then where's your fireman? Where's your health worker? Where's your teacher, right? Some people love to do what they do because that's what they were called to do. It's not about the money. And I just feel that, I'll say this last bit, I know because I see you chomping at the bit.
No, it's all right.
Okay, I just feel that I think we're doing a disservice. So what happens is when kids are because they got everything so quick, and they can easily fantasize about it in ways in which we couldn't. We had to literally imagine ourselves being somewhere. Now they can see it, and there's visualization for it, and they're absorbing it every day. I think what's happening is we're raising kids in a false, there's a facade to some degree, that we got people thinking they can do whatever they want to do, but they may not be necessarily called to do that. And I'll say this last thing, and here's why I really would stick this point in. Donald, you've been on a crowded train in New York City, right? You know what a crowded train feels like, right?
Yeah.
So when you get on a crowded train, right, what happens is that everybody's rushing in, right? You got people coming off, people coming in. But what happens is that everybody's standing by the door. No one goes into the car to sit down. Everyone is at the door, right? And this is you understand transportation. Everyone is at the door. And so everyone is crowded and packed in this one spot by the doors, right? Because they don't want to miss their opportunity to get off the train. But if you get on a train, say, in Flatbush and you don't have to get off until 125th Street, you can move in, right, and take a seat and create space. I feel like we're putting people in a crowded, in the spirit realm, I think we're pushing people into crowded arenas, spaces that they may not have been called to. And then the people that are called to that are now being bombarded with people who've been told they can become this and do this, and that's not really where they might belong. You know what I'm saying? So I get the whole idea. And what's happening is now it's crowded, it's congested, and everyone is tight, and then there's frustration. So what happens is kids become frustrated. This didn't materialize. That didn't come to fruition. So now I'm upset. Now I'm angry because what I thought I could become, because this is what they told me without any true analysis, without me even giving any thought to what it is that I really can do, and maybe even where God wants me to go. There was no consideration for that other than the goal. And I think we are misleading this generation in a bad way. That's just my thought. Yeah. What say you?
So I agree with you after hearing your explanation. I agree with you. The only thing I would say is the reason that I don't put limits per se is because it's a mindset.
Okay.
I think the mindset tells you if you're limited, right?
Right.
In the analogy you gave, Don, run into that wall.
Right.
Run through that wall.
Right.
At some point, I believe it wholeheartedly.
Right.
Then it gets to a point after my shoulder starts feeling a certain type of way from running into it.
Correct.
That I look for a door. So I think the mindset of being able to know that you can do anything or you have the ability to do it will enable you to think of creative ways to get it accomplished, which may change the destination.
I agree.
Because you'll learn stuff along the way.
Right, exactly. That's a good point.
Someone could study to be a doctor, right? There are NFL players, for example, that were NFL players. Their goal was to make it to the NFL. Their passion was being a physician, and they wind up going. So I say all that to say, the goal for me, I think, mentally, not putting limits on a person broadens them to seeing other stuff. Because if you don't think, if you think that you're limited, then you're only going to look at certain ways that didn't work. Then, like you said, the person gets dug in. I thought that I should have been able to accomplish this. I wasn't able to accomplish it. The sky is falling.
And that's why I feel, and you made a great point, and you're right. You can't put the limits. Give them an opportunity to see what they can do and what they can become. And I think and I agree with that. I think, unfortunately, though, what happens is that when we continue to promote this idea, and we see it in church all the time, right? God's gonna do this. But what if God has a whole different area for you to go into, or this is not His will for you to be into? Like, in other words, my premise is always, as the Hebrew boy said, even our God is able to deliver us out of this, but even if He doesn't, right? We're still not going to bow down to you, because at the end of the day, it's not us being delivered; it's just our commitment to God, right? So I just feel like wasn't it important that the mindset that the deliverance was possible? Correct. I agree. I think the possibility is the power. Don't take that part away. Right. And I'm not implying that should be taken away. That needs to remain. But my thing is, we're having the problem with this generation that if He doesn't do it, how are they going to cope? We don't teach people that. We don't teach this generation, say, if you don't make this, how are you going to deal with that? Could it be that maybe that might not be the path? You know, I could say, man, these cameras are great. I love that studio back there that Fran and Blaine are in, right? But at the end of the day, there still takes a certain kind of, I can like it and be inspired by it because somebody's telling me, hey, you can do that, you can do that. And if there's money tied to it, and there's some notoriety tied to it, and there's a platform tied to it, I'm going to go and chase that thing. But the problem is that, but when I get in there, I'm going to be befuddled by the enormity of what's in that room. And the thing is, I'm walking in that room without the level of creativity that needs to be in me to actually do that. Because I never gave myself a true assessment, or no one ever said to me, hey, this is what it entails to do that room. This is the kind of level of skill and creativity it's going to take to do that.
I'm big on exposure, though. I'm big on the exposure, let's just say behind the camera says, you know what? I can direct. I don't have to be in front of the camera.
Correct.
But you're exposed to it. So initially, just like the analogy you gave, once you're exposed to it, it may be too big for you.
Right.
But I can do the engineering part. I might be a whiz at engineering.
Right.
Or I might be a whiz at production.
Correct. Correct.
So
I see your point.
We will,
no,
you know.
No, you're making a, I think what it is, we probably disagree on some of the nuances, the semantics of it, in the sense where it's okay to go in that room. Your thing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's good to be exposed because it may not be exactly doing what they do, but it could be something else within that scope.
And you wouldn't see it
unless you were in that room.
Absolutely.
And I totally concur with that. Absolutely. And then I guess my point is, don't go in that room if you have the wrong intentions and you can't deal with the struggle or whatever journey is going to come with being in that room because you're so bent on just simply accomplishing something.
Yeah, it can't be an all or nothing.
Right, exactly.
It can't be.
And I think that's what we're hearing.
Yeah.
How many times you scroll through your phone and you see an advertisement on, you can grow this, you can become that, you can do this, there's a master class on that, there's a master class on this, there's a master class on how to wear your glasses.
But they don't tell you they don't tell you all of the steps.
Correct.
And maybe that master class that now they have a following, that was probably their 10th endeavor.
Correct.
Right?
Right.
And this is the only one that's taking.
Taking, right.
But
that's
they
actually
learned
sticking,
through those bumps and bruises how to get to success.
Yeah, exactly.
They say you fail your way to success.
Yeah, you do.
So
I agree.
I'll say this.
No, please.
I'm new into one of the fastest growing games, pickleball.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
And so me and my wife play. And me and her are partners, and we play more often. So we'll play a group that's better than us.
Right.
That's how we get better.
That's how you get better.
We lose.
Yeah.
And then the first thing they say is, do you want to split it up? No. Because this is going to be my partner more than playing with you or anyone else.
I agree.
So we're going to work to get better.
Gotcha.
The losing doesn't affect me.
Right.
It doesn't impact me.
And I think that's great, though, Donald, because you know why? I think, now, again, I'm just going to be a little biased here because I think your background, your journey, and just the way you're wired,
loser.
No. It made you. No, it made you embrace losing.
Thank you.
It made you. It made you embrace being a
professional loser.
You're a professional loser. You understand?
Right. You know losing.
Yo, guys, we gotta close. I don't gotta close.
If you don't know
you don't know nothing else. You know how to lose. Your journey taught you how to lose. Right.
Right.
No. Honestly, I feel like, but you learned that, like you said with your kids, they're going to understand what no looks like, to stay in there. I just don't think this generation knows how to suffer. I think Christians in general, the way we preach the gospel today, this new level of Christianity, or I won't say new level of Christianity, but I just say Western Christianity for the most part, we don't do well with suffering. We don't know. Well, all we know is that it's a blessing, but we don't understand that there's a suffering that comes when Paul says, I want to know him and the power and the resurrection and the fellowship of his suffering. So the fellowship and the worship is part of the suffering that we need to go through, because that's what's actually making us. I think we skip past being made so that we can just accomplish. And I think that's the danger. Maybe that's probably the better way to have said all what I said. Is I just think it's good to accomplish. It's good to open up. It's good not to put any limits. But understand that at some point you need to learn how to abase and abound and be full and be hungry.
Absolutely.
So that you be, characterized the best way you need to be for the journey. D, man, listen, I got to check. Listen, can I get the team? How fast can you guys put up our Brooklyn Bears and Ball logo? Because instantaneous. Look at that. That's
great,
it. It's
great
either
crew.
that or they're ready to go. So they're ready. Right. Exactly. So, I know my crew. And shout out to my team.
Yes.
Fran and Blaine.
Awesome.
These guys do their thing. You guys are awesome. I appreciate
Awesome
y'all.
job.
So, Brooklyn Bears and Ball Sports Show, we're getting ready to embark upon season 3, Donald.
Yes.
Okay? Now, we've had some inconsistencies. Probably more due to me. Donald this is probably why the Brooklyn Bears and Ball hasn't really taken off the way it should, because I'm on some, we don't need to do all of that, right? And Donald's like, no, we need to expose and need to get, because Donald's very passionate about this show, and I appreciate the effort that he puts in there, and his wife as well, because she is our producer and did a lot of our graphics. But anyway, we need y'all to subscribe to our show. We're on Facebook. We're on, where are we, Donald?
Facebook. We're on Instagram.
Yep.
We're on Twitter.
And
also.
Twitter as
X.
well.
We're on
Yeah.
X.
Gotcha. And TikTok too, right? No, is it TikTok? No, not yet.
TikTok, yeah.
TikTok. You're on TikTok. Yeah. Brooklyn Bears and Ball. We're both from Brooklyn.
We're on
TikTok. We're on
TikTok.
TikTok. You know what I'm saying? Right. As long as it's still allowed in America, we'll see what happens. You know what I'm saying? But TikTok is where we are. And so those are the platforms. Look for us there. Donald and I talk sports, man. And let me tell you something. We gave you a mild version of how we do, because this is a more serious kind of, But in that show, it's we take the gloves off, man. We go in, because Donald hates LeBron, and
and Rod hates KD.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and I hate KD, and so we go into, well, he don't really hate LeBron.
I
don't actually hate KD.
I don't hate LeBron.
Yeah.
I just call it like I see it.
Yeah.
And Rod is loyal to anyone that wears purple and gold.
It's team first, man.
Yeah.
It's team first.
So,
yeah, that's just how it is.
He
But
will,
yeah.
he will look past his faults and
Right.
see his needs as it pertains to the purple and gold.
Right. As long as you got that on, then it doesn't matter what you do. Yeah, exactly. But Don, man, I appreciate you, bro.
Thank you so much.
You are.
made it
Man.
painless.
Yeah, it made it painless, right?
You made it painless.
My brother, man.
Yeah,
I appreciate you, man.
it.
Listen, y'all make sure y'all follow him, man, on his handles and stuff. Donald's doing some amazing things. He also keeping our Brooklyn Bears and Ball accounts active as well.
Right.
And we got a new NFL season coming out in September, man.
Yes.
But again, a father's journey. Thank you all for being with us today. It's Apostle R.O.D., man, in the building. I appreciate Don Cornelius, man. And that's not the Don Cornelius from Soul Train, by the way. Okay, right. This is
no relation.
No relation.
Urban legend, yes, but no relation. I never got a Christmas card or anything.
Well, listen, this brother's got a soul, and and he does trains. So look at that.
Look,
see, okay.
Jinx,
what's up.
right? We supposed to say jinx.
Right, because you say things at the same time, right? Exactly.
Okay.
Oh, man, yeah,
Look
see?
at you
There
trying
you
to
go.
slip some
Look, I'm
stuff
trying to,
in.
you know what I'm saying? Come
Okay.
on, it's a father's journey. I only get that then, you know what I mean? That's it. That's exclusive stuff. You got to get that on Patreon, though. You got to pay for that.
Right, exactly.
Yo, listen, until next time, y'all. Peace.